A ton of news taking place, so we had to track down one of the best in the business, Cowboys insider Todd Archer from ESPN, joining us on the D&M Leasing Hotline. Good morning, Todd. Thank you for the time. As always, what finally pushed this CeeDee Lamb deal over the top? Why did it finally get done now?
The calendar? I mean, isn't that as good as any reason, right? I don't know how much there was movement in the last couple of days, sure, that got it closer to what CeeDee wanted. But I think the Cowboys knew you have to get him in this week to make sure he can be fully ready to go for Cleveland. We'll see if training camp matters at all when a guy's going to have, 6.5 practices, I guess, before the season opener. But I would probably say the calendar played as much of a part in this thing as anything else on both sides. I'm sure CeeDee was looking to get here as well and didn't want to go to California for a meaningless week of training camp, and they just decided let's really hammer this thing when they get back for that last preseason game.
Did the Joneses win or lose anything by waiting?
I don't think they lost anything because CeeDee was not going to do a deal before Justin Jefferson, right? So none of that mattered. Like I saw someone tweeted, the Cowboys could have got this done for $20 million last year. Well, they offered him $25 last year, and that didn't happen. So that's a false statement. So no, this and his agent Tory Dandy knows this market better than anybody because he's had guys like A.J. Brown, the guys that have helped form this market. So he knew where it was going. So they weren't in a rush to do it. I don't think the Cowboys lost anything by, quote, waiting. Just because, again, I hate to parrot Jerry's line. It does take, and Steven's line, it takes two sides to get a deal done. And if they weren't going to do it until the Jefferson deal, that's what they needed to have happen. Now, when did Jefferson sign? May, June, whatever. Could it have done before August 26th? Yeah, it could have been from there to that time frame. But that didn't really cost the Cowboys any cap space or cash space, in my view.
So this isn't a unique philosophy they have then to wait. It's on the player too, because they're doing the same thing with Dak, it would seem. Well,
they signed Trayvon Diggs last year, right? I mean, so it is, and they signed Terrence Steele last year. So and look, this is not a history the Cowboys have. Go back to Bobby's favorite time of the Romo era, where they signed all their guys early: Romo, Witten, Ware, Newman, Brady James, Colombo. You go through it, pretty much everybody. They signed all those guys early. They never got to this point. This changed, honestly, kind of when DeMarcus Lawrence said, "The cap's not my problem. That's your problem. Give me my deal." And I think everybody's kind of followed that, with Dak taking it to the most favorable negotiating period that he's done with his agent to make sure he got everything he wanted. So this has not been their MO forever. It's been their MO really since when did Dak Lawrence get tagged the first time? 2018, 2019,
yep.
Something like that. So that's when this thing's kind of flipped. And I think it's incumbent on the Cowboys now to realize it's a cheap cost of living, no state taxes. That stuff doesn't really work anymore. You got to have to come up with, and players aren't doing 6, 7, 8 year deals like those guys did back in the day. So you have to come up with a different message to get these guys done on your time, if they're willing to do a deal like Trayvon Diggs was, like Terrence Steele was, like Lyle Collins was, Jalen Smith, all those guys.
Talking with Todd Archer from ESPN. Todd, now that the CeeDee deal is done, do you think this is an immediate pivot to, all right, let's see what we can get done with Dak, or do you think the Cowboys front office is saying, we're going to exhale here and just take some time to figure out our football team before we get into anything else?
I would hope they can operate on two paths at the same time. So it should be an immediate pivot, because to me, if you get to the opener against Cleveland and Dak's not signed, why would Dak sign after that? Why not just play out the season knowing March 13th is the drop deadline date, roughly that point for the Cowboys, because after that point, when the league year actually ends, he counts $40 million against their cap. So And if he waits that long, he's hitting the market, and he's going to become the highest paid player in NFL history. So that's why I think there has to be an immediate pivot if you truly want to get the deal done with Dak. And again, I think some of it falls on Dak. How much does he truly want to be with the Cowboys to get a deal done that might not give him everything he would get in March, but certainly enough to even still make him the highest paid quarterback right now in the NFL.
You mentioned there that if he were to get to new league year next year, hit free agency, that he would become the highest paid player. He'd get the contract that he wanted. I know when we talked to you over the summer, you said if he hits the new league year, if he hits free agency, that would likely signal he'd be playing somewhere else. Is that still the way you feel? If he gets to a new league year, would you say that's probably unlikely he comes back to the Cowboys?
Yeah, because I don't know how if he gets to the New Year League, whatever I'm trying to say, that $40 million is counted against their cap. So I don't know how they would be able to structure a new deal with that $40 million number already on it, and then adding that on top of a $250 million, whatever the deal would be, right? I don't know how they would be able to structure that. So that's why they need to get it done before the end of the 2024 league year.
Todd Archer from ESPN joining us here on Shan RJ on 105 through the Fan.
We just lost everybody, Bobby, with numbers talk. Way to go.
No. People like it. Dalvin Cook coming in here for a workout today. Cowboys still examining the running back room. I think a lot of people right now feel like Deuce Vaughn's on the roster. If Cook is signed today, is that Deuce Vaughn's spot? Do they just add to the running back room instead of subbing one person for another? How do you think the Cowboys are evaluating Cook heading into this workout?
I wonder more if it's just to look and see where this guy's at and what he has in shape and conditioning and all that. Not to be a dude that they would add right away. They've typically done this right around this time, maybe with not names like Dalvin Cook, but to get a feel for break glass in case of emergency guys. I wonder if it's more that path than signing a guy. But if we want to go down the path of, hey, they're looking to add the guy, I can add another running back to that. I can have 4 tailbacks and a fullback. You would just have to go light somewhere else. Maybe it's 3 tight ends. Maybe it's 1 less linebacker. Maybe do some roster shenanigans with a C.J. Goodwin and keep him on the practice squad for the first few games of the season and call him up that way. So they have some flexibility in my mind with roster spots that they could add guys at a number of positions and still be okay. As much as they say they love the talent and these are hard decisions, they could get below 50 they could cut to 50 if they needed to and still be okay. So I think they would be in a situation where they could have 4 tailbacks if they wanted to go that route and still keep Deuce Vaughn on the team.
Todd, did anything change your mind in Oxnard about the running game? And is there any chance, what's the likelihood that we're overreacting to many of us thinking that this running game is just not going to be good?
I'm with you because, I mean, it's I don't know if the story's coming out today, but I have a story coming up with on Zeke, and it's what does he have left? We've not seen him. It's not news that he's not carried the ball in the preseason. The last time he did it was 2017. I thought it was interesting that they upped his workload later on in camp. The first 4 padded practices, he had 13 runs. The last 4, he had 24 runs. So they were clearly getting him ready in that manner for the season. And there were times where you saw Zeke with some burst and a jump cut and the ability to make some people miss. So, McFadden took over for meat on the bone.
Randall.
Oklahoma State guy.
Deep end.
So
the
then he became the guy and ran for 1,000 yards. I think what the Cowboys are banking on is their scheme will be better and they'll do less, and that'll help them be better. Somehow, it's like forgetting Sarah Marshall when he's guys trying to surf, and he's like, do less. Now the Cowboys are like Kunu out on the beach right now. Do less.
Kunu.
Todd, is there anything? Do you expect any surprises today with the roster moves, or did yesterday bring you the surprise?
I don't know if it's surprises. Really, it's probably surprises for guys like us that have been following this thing and close. And if they were to get rid of a Deuce, like it might surprise the fans, but maybe not some of us who look at the rest of the roster and wonder what they're going to do. Because is Carl Lawson a lock? It looked like he got blocked pretty good in that last game. So would that surprise people? Maybe that would surprise people if he were not to make this team. But I don't know if there's any real. I mean, let's go with Josh Ball. Does it matter? We're not going to be up in arms over either one of those guys. So I don't know if there's really any surprises that would make us scratch our head.
Todd,
am I missing somebody?
No. I think it's, to me, the most surprising guy, and it wasn't a huge surprise. It was just yesterday with Willie Harvey. He was somebody who was in contention for the linebacker spot. That would have been one. Yeah. But no, I don't think there's a Brett Maher, Dan Bailey situation here. Todd, after the game on Saturday, Shereen Williams had asked Jerry, hey, is there any regret over the Trey Lance trade? And Jerry kind of scoffed at it and said, for a 4th-round pick, and was like, no, absolutely not. Is any of that posturing, you think, for them, or when they look at where they're at, do you think they're like, man, we really wish we would have had that 4th-round pick this year?
I'm sure they wouldn't mind have had the 4th-round pick, so they could have selected a running back, right? I mean, that was they entered that dead zone right there, where once you got past that round, they weren't going to get a guy that was better than what they had on the roster. So I'm sure there's some regrets, maybe too strong of a word, but I mean, by giving up that 4th-round pick, you know who they weren't able to select? Let's see. This will go through the list here. Viliami Fehoko. They weren't able to get him. Reggie Robinson. They weren't able to get him. Jabril Cox. They weren't able to get him. Let me go through the rest of these. So, yeah, we can all point to Ryan Switzer. They weren't able to get him. We can point to Dak and Jake Ferguson. They've had great success in the 4th round. But I think when you look at having the opportunity to get a guy that people thought highly of in a draft not too long ago at that position with uncertainty at that spot, I don't know why there would be regret. And look, yeah, it was 5 picks. I got you, but there was improvement from Lance. that aside, from that first game against the Rams through the preseason, in my mind, that he's still intriguing enough to want to continue to look at. And maybe this is like the old school development of quarterbacks that the Cowboys would be going through with a guy that, he didn't play his first couple of years anyway. I'm not saying he's going to be Romo by any stretch of the matter, but it's a 4th-round pick. I'm not going to get all hung up and bothered by that. Was there anybody else I missed? Charles Tapper.
Charles Tapper. There you go.
Your editor at ESPN asks you to predict whether the Cowboys go over or under 10.5 wins.
10.5. I would say under, but I think it'll be 10-7.
Okay. Todd, what's been the most overblown?
Vegas says under, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
They are favored in 13 games, and generally when you're favored in 13 games, that Vegas' way of telling you're going to win 10.
Vegas is reading Archer, clearly.
Todd, this has been for us.
Bobby has them 15-2. That's what I don't understand.
Oh, my gosh. Does Bobby annoy you guys in the press box like he does us?
Yeah. He's so far away from us in the press box that I don't even know that he's there. So
he knows I'm there when he knows I'm there when I just kind of saunter up to him and he's like, "What bit is coming my way?" That's when he knows.
Toddy, he's telling us all the great Archer humor behind the scenes about you. So you lived up to it with your 4th-round skit right there. We appreciate it as always. Keep up the great work, and we'll talk to you soon. That's the only time Broadus texts us during the show anymore is when you're on. So thank you.
I'm glad I could broker some peace.